There comes a point in life when you stop waiting for your children to call, not because the love is gone, not because you've stopped caring, but because somewhere along the way, quietly, without any announcement, the waiting started feeling like something else. It started feeling like a kind of grief you didn't have a name for, and you learned to carry it without saying anything to anyone. Margaret. Margaret was 61 years old. She had 2 sons. She knew their schedules better than they knew hers. She knew that Daniel got home from work around 6:30, that he usually made dinner on Tuesdays, that his youngest had soccer on Saturday mornings. She knew this not because he told her. She knew because she paid close attention to every small thing he mentioned during the brief windows when he did call. She kept mental notes the way some people keep journals. It was a Tuesday evening. She sat at her kitchen table with a cup of tea that had gone cold 20 minutes ago. The lamp in the corner threw soft yellow light across the room. Outside, it had been raining since noon. The slow, unhurried kind of rain that makes evening feel heavier and quieter at the same time. She wasn't waiting for the phone to ring. She had stopped doing that years ago. There's something that happens between parents and children that nobody warns you about. The love doesn't change, but the closeness does. And most parents spend years quietly adjusting to that distance, pretending it doesn't ache the way it does. She had been a good mother. Not perfect. She knew that too. There were years when she had been too tired, too distracted, too afraid. Her marriage had been difficult in ways her children only partially understood. There were seasons when she had simply survived rather than truly been present. But she had tried. She had shown up again and again. That counted for something, didn't it? Her older son, Robert, lived 4 hours away. He had a wife, a demanding career, and a life that seemed to move at twice the speed of hers. Their calls were warm, but short. Warm, but efficient. She had learned to say what mattered quickly, before the pauses stretched into obvious busyness on his end. She never called at inconvenient times. She had quietly learned the art of not being inconvenient. Most parents of a certain age learn this without anyone teaching them. The rain tapped softly against the window. She looked at the photograph on the refrigerator. Daniel, maybe 9 years old, squinting into the sun at a beach somewhere. She couldn't remember which beach anymore. She used to know every detail of every summer. Now the years had folded together into something soft and blurry, like an old map that had been handled too many times. She picked up her phone, put it back down, then picked it up again and typed, "Thinking of you. Hope the week isn't too hard." She didn't ask him to call. She never asked any more. There was a quiet kind of dignity in that, in learning to need less, or at least in appearing to. She set the phone face down on the table and listened to the rain. A lot of people in their 60s will tell you they're fine with the distance. They'll say they have their own lives. I understand that. I'm proud of who they've become. And they mean it. They genuinely do. But I'm fine with it, and it doesn't hurt, are 2 completely different sentences. And most parents never say the second one out loud. She thought about her own mother. She had been 43 when her mother died, and she remembered clearly the particular quality of guilt she carried afterward. Not about the big things, about the ordinary Sundays she hadn't driven over, the phone calls she kept short, the visits where she was physically present but somewhere else entirely in her mind, half thinking about work, about the boys, about whatever argument had been quietly living inside her marriage that week. She hadn't understood then what her mother had been absorbing in silence. She understood now. That's what happens when you're on this side of it. You start to see your own history differently. You recognize things you couldn't see before, and you carry a new kind of regret alongside the old ones. Softer, but heavier in a different way. Daniel replied around 9:30. "Thanks, Mom. Crazy week." Talk soon. She read it twice. Then she set the phone down and sat for a while in the kitchen light, hands wrapped around the cold mug. Talk soon was the phrase they always used. It meant, I love you, but I don't have room right now. She had learned to hear the love inside it, because the alternative, hearing only the distance, was harder to live with on a Tuesday night alone. She washed the mug, dried it, placed it exactly where it always went. The small, quiet rituals of a life lived mostly alone. There's a particular kind of loneliness that only exists inside relationships that are real and loving. It's not the loneliness of being abandoned. It's the loneliness of knowing someone loves you, genuinely loves you, and still feeling like they don't quite see you anymore. Like you've slowly become background, important background, necessary background, but background. Most parents will never say this to their children because they don't want to be a burden, because they remember being young and overwhelmed themselves, because they love their children far more than they need to be seen by them. That kind of love is enormous, and it is also, quietly, one of the loneliest experiences a person can carry. She turned off the kitchen light and walked to the living room. The television was on. She rarely watched it anymore, but she kept it running for the noise. The way it made the room feel less empty. A cooking show, someone explaining how to layer flavors, patient, unhurried instructions. She wasn't listening, but the sound was company enough. She sat in her chair, the same chair she had sat in for 15 years, and pulled a blanket across her lap. She thought about the beach in that photograph. She thought she remembered now. Ocean City, summer of 2002. The boys had argued the entire drive down. She and her husband had barely spoken. And yet, when they arrived, when Daniel ran into the water for the first time and turned back to look at her with that pure, unguarded joy on his face, everything else had gone quiet for a moment. Just a moment. But it had been real. She still kept that feeling somewhere inside her, like a small stone in a coat pocket, smooth, warm from being carried a long time. That's what parents hold on to, not the arguments, not the exhaustion, not the years when everything was harder than it should have been. They hold on to the moments when the love was visible, simple, right there on the surface, easy to see, because those moments are proof that it was all real, that the life built together, however imperfect, however scattered it became over the years, it happened. It mattered. She didn't fall asleep in the chair, but she stayed there a long time. The rain had softened to something almost gentle. The television murmured in the background. The lamp made the room warm and amber. Somewhere across the country, her sons were living their lives. Busy, tired, loved, distracted. Exactly the way she had been at their age. Exactly the way every generation is. In the middle of everything, unable to fully see the people who love them most. Until later. Until they're older. Until they become the ones sitting by the window. She didn't feel angry about any of it. She'd moved past anger some years ago. What she felt now was something more honest than anger. It was the feeling of loving someone completely and knowing that love lives mostly inside you, that it doesn't always travel in both directions with equal weight, and learning, slowly, imperfectly, how to make peace with that. Not every night, but most nights. Before bed, she checked her phone one last time. No new messages. She plugged it in on the nightstand, stood at the window for a moment, watched the rain. Then she thought, quietly, without sadness, without any performance, I love them. I hope they're okay. I hope someday they'll understand. And that was enough. That was all there was. She turned off the light. The room went dark, and the rain kept falling, soft and steady and patient, the way it always does, the way the world keeps moving around the quiet, invisible love that parents carry. carry, long after everyone else has gone to sleep. If any part of this felt familiar tonight, you're not alone in carrying it.